I'm MC tonight as opposed to being one of the speakers, but I do want to say a few things. One of them, I've got a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Thumbs down to Hunter Harrison, who is the CEO of C.U.P.E, Canadian Pacific, who was quoted in the papers today saying that regulators have overreacted to the accident in Lac-Mégantic. I mean, 47 people died in a most horrific way. I would like to see him go to that community and repeat those words there. But a shout out and a thumbs up to the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. And I know there are these are some of the bravest young people on the planet, and we want our spirit and our energy to go to them. First of all, I'm just delighted to be in the beautiful city of Hamilton. This is the birthplace of, in many ways, of unionism, a rich history in working people struggling against betrayal, against very hard times, and coming together not only to survive but to thrive through solidarity and community. The latest betrayal, of course, you know too well, and that is that U.S. Steel has declared that it's leaving. It dumped all its debt on its Canadian operations and then turned around and betrayed the promises they made, the funding that was given to them by different levels of government. The agreement with the Harper government never was in place to protect workers or pensions or wages, and shame on them for so shamelessly turning around and saying none of that matters anymore. It's going to, their behavior in Hamilton has been absolutely reprehensible. And the effects of pensions of workers on spin-off benefits and spin-off businesses, and even the tax base in Hamilton is going to be incredible. What's needed now is an urgent working group, a plan to put in action to include potentially workers reopening the plant. I mean, I don't know that that could work, but I certainly think it should be on the table. There are incidences in the United States where plants have been taken over by workers, but certainly the notion that we need to come together at the federal, provincial, municipal level with the unions and talk about the future of this city is absolutely urgent. But I have to warn us that that would fly right in the face of this comprehensive agreement with Europe, which is still in negotiation, no matter what the Harper government likes to tell you of how much they want to show you these photo ops. It's still very much under contention. I've just come back from Europe, and I can tell you there's a huge movement against not only CETA, but the agreement with the United States called TTIP. Certainly a real desire to work together, Europeans, Canadians, and Americans, and an understanding that this isn't Europe versus Canada. This is the European corporations and the North American corporations coming together to set up the lowest common denominators for everything: health and safety, workers' rights, environmental protection, austerity, and so on, right across the board. They don't want to bump into higher standards when they cross borders or go across the ocean, and they want those standards to be the lowest possible. But what we're going to run into, and what is needed in Hamilton and many other parts of this country, is that you're not going to be allowed local economic development policies, local hiring content, buying locally, buying local food, schools and universities or hospitals that want to promote local food development. All of those will be able to be challenged by the big food service companies from Europe. And so we are coming together here in Hamilton this weekend, not only to show complete and total solidarity with the workers and others in the community in Hamilton that's been so devastated by this kind of behavior, but to lay it really very much at the feet of the Harper government. Not that they started it. I mean, a lot of these problems came with trade agreements and deregulation and privatization before them, but we have never had a government as right-wing, as vicious, as anti-democratic, as anti-people, as anti-dissent as we have in this government. And we cannot afford 4 more years of either Stephen Harper or Stephen Harper's. plan to do, and it's been ongoing for the last year and is going to continue very intensively up until the election and beyond, is to forge solidarity, a network of solidarity with the unions and workers, social justice groups, environmentalists, youth, First Nations, seniors, environmentalists, artists, people from all walks of life who look at what this government's doing and say, you do not represent our values. You do not represent the values of most Canadians, including those who would have voted progressive conservative. You simply do not represent us. We are going to take back our country, and we're going to take back the values of dignity, inclusiveness, justice, and environmental stewardship that we know are the core of the values of Canadians. From four wonderful speakers tonight. I want to first start by thanking three of our sponsors, most important sponsors, Canadian Union of Public Employees, Unifor, and the United Nurses of Alberta. And I also want to thank Kathy Clark and the chapter here in Hamilton for the fabulous work that you've done putting this event together. Our first speaker is a very dear friend of mine. His name is Paul Moist, and Paul and I have spent a lot of time on planes and trains and automobiles and rooms like this talking to Canadians about public water, about health care, about CETA, about these values of dignity. Paul is, of course, the national president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, which has 628 members. And Paul is 1,000, I meant. I know that. I just wanted to be sure you were listening. It was a test. Paul is an ardent supporter of public services and has led CUPE to the forefront in the fight against privatization. He's championed the positive and vital roles of services like healthcare, education, and childcare that play in the making of our communities and make our communities better places for all Canadians. Paul is a firm believer in the labor movement as a force for social change, and I have to say, CUPE puts its money where its mouth is. CUPE has been a supporter and a friend and a partner in an incredible way as long as I can remember of our organization. And I know that Paul and CUPE really do deeply believe in the notion of this kind of solidarity. And he has used his leadership to expand CUPE's work in literacy, combating climate change, improving the socioeconomic conditions of Aboriginal peoples, anti-racism and LGBT rights advocacy, and as national president, Paul is a leading voice on the economy, globalization, trade, and a staunch defender of human rights in Canada and around the world. Most recently, he has focused on worker right and pension reforms. Please welcome Paul Maude.